Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Missing Link in Your Healing. Today, I'm going to be talking about how positivity can potentially wreck your health. Now, let me just start off by saying that this is not an indictment about being positive or having a positive attitude. This is about when your positive attitude or your positivity goes too far and potentially starts affecting your health. So, in the last episode, I explained to you how it's really important that we have two poles for creation. Well, that there's always two poles of creation going on at any one time. Where there's always our current reality, what's going on with us right now in the here and now. And then there's the vision of what our spirit would love to create in the world. And it's like having a battery that has two terminals. It has a negative terminal and a positive terminal. And if you want to light a light bulb, you have to connect both the cable connecting the negative terminal and the positive terminal to the light bulb in order for the light bulb to shine. So we have this concept of duality in the universe, right? And this is a product of our rational mind. Our rational mind separates things into two parts, into good and bad, happy and sad, support and challenge, pain and pleasure, depending on whether whatever it is that's happening to us and that we're viewing through our senses or that we're perceiving through our senses is supporting us or challenging us. So if it's supportive, then and it supports what we believe to be true about ourselves and life and the world in a positive way, then it's going to generate positive thoughts and positive emotions. And if it challenges what we believe to be true, then it's going to generate negative thoughts and negative emotions. And we separate things into polarities. Now, what happens is that separation, the more fundamental we are, the more we see only one side without seeing the other, the more it creates fundamentalism in the physical body. And that's what ultimately leads to disease. So I am going to expound on this. So this duality, so we've got this seeming duality in the universe, which is what our rational mind tells us is happening, that you've got day and, it's either day or night. But the truth is when it's day where I am, it's night on the opposite side of the globe. So day and night exist at the same time. It just depends on where you are as to which one you will be seeing and you will be experiencing. But that doesn't mean that the other side doesn't exist. And it's exactly like that with every experience that we have. We are going to perceive it, and our rational mind is going to polarize this into whether this is a positive or a negative event, and it's going to generate positive or negative feelings. But the truth is, both sides always exist. So the trick here is to transcend duality, because when we can do that, then we can actually connect to actuality. So in actuality, both sides exist simultaneously, just like both sides of a coin exist at the same time, but depending on which side is facing upwards, that's the side we're going to see. Or day and night exists at the same time on the earth, and you are going to be experiencing day or night depending on which part of the globe you are on. That was terrible English, but you get what I'm saying. Okay. All right. So now it's the same with positivity and negativity. They equal and opposite parts of the same whole. So positivity is revered in our sort of culture in the world these days because, well, who doesn't like a positive attitude? I mean, hello, most of us are inspired by people with positive attitudes, and we feel better when we're positive. So there's nothing wrong with that. It becomes problematic when we are being positive to the extent that we deny the reality of the negativity. It's when we are always positive, never negative. It's like trying to be a one-sided human being. And what ends up happening is we are repressing or suppressing half of who we are. And whatever we repress has to be expressed some way. And it very often gets expressed through our physical body in terms of signs and symptoms. It's got to come out somewhere. So when I meet people who are too nice, too positive, they're always fabulous, they're always super kind, they never negative, they never have a bad thing to say about anyone. Now, please, I'm not knocking nice people at all right? Not knocking them at all. But when you are constantly only seeing one side of a person, you have to ask yourself where the other side is, because the other side is being expressed somewhere. And this so often happens in relationships. When we get together in relationships with others, we're always putting up, especially if we really like the person, right? We're putting our best foot forward. And so what happens is in the beginning, we're infatuated. We're either blind to the other side. I think it's a combination of we're blind to the other side. We don't want to see the truth. So we miss all the potential red flags. And also we are not showing the other side because we want the other person to like us also. And then as the relationship progresses and we start becoming more comfortable with one another, then we start showing both sides. And at some point, very often, we turn around and we go, I can't be with this person anymore because they're not the person that I fell in love with or that I became friends with. Well, the truth is they're exactly the same person you fell in love with or became friends with. It's just that you either had only a one-sided view of them because you were blind to the truth, or they only showed you one side of them. And it's impossible. It's impossible to repress or suppress half of your being. And it's incredibly unhealthy to do that. And I'm going to try and impart why it is so, all right? So this polarity, the seeming duality, this division into equal and oppositely charged poles is inherent in the body. And it's very, very clear to see in our autonomic nervous system. So your autonomic nervous system is the part of your nervous system that runs the automatic functions of your body. And your autonomic nervous system consists of two parts. It consists of your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system. So your sympathetic nervous system is more active in the day. Your parasympathetic nervous system is more active at night. Your sympathetic nervous system is associated with oxidation. Your parasympathetic nervous system is associated with reduction. Your sympathetic nervous system is associated with alertness and alertness, like being awake, focused attention. Your parasympathetic nervous system is associated with sleep. Actually, it's associated with a more relaxed state. It's associated more with that sort of alpha brainwave state and the deeper brainwave states. And your sympathetic nervous system is associated with the beta brainwave states, the part that is working, your rational kind of thinking. And so your autonomic nervous system works as a unit. I mean, I've divided it now, but it actually works as a unit because your sympathetic nervous system is active when you're meeting a deadline, when you're focused and you're concentrated and you're doing things so that you can actually meet the deadline. Your parasympathetic nervous system is more active when you eat, for example, or it should be, because your parasympathetic nervous system helps to produce your digestive enzymes. So you may be super busy for an hour or two, and then you realize you're really hungry. So now what you do is you go off to the kitchen or you go to your lunchbox or whatever it is, and you get a snack. In what you should be doing, if you really want to enhance your digestive ability, is to eat that food slowly, mindfully, without any distractions, because what that will do is it will help to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which activates the digestive enzymes, which means digestion will happen more effectively. So think of it as the accelerator and the brake of a car. You need the accelerator to move you forward, and you need the brake to stop you. So when you get to the traffic lights, you need to brake. When you need to pull off from the traffic lights, you need to accelerate. And that's how your autonomic nervous system works. Now, when you are trying to be positive, always positive, never negative, what ends up happening is you are putting your foot on the accelerator almost constantly. And if you put your foot on the accelerator constantly, then you run the risk of running the traffic lights. And if you run the risk of running the traffic lights, you run the risk of having an accident. And so what ends up happening is we develop either sympathetic or parasympathetic dominance, which means that instead of working together harmoniously, this autonomic nervous system that regulates most of the functions in your body, including your heart rate, your respiratory rate, your digestive enzyme production, the rest of your endocrine system's functioning, how well your immune system works, it's all governed and controlled by your autonomic nervous system. You're going to have imbalances in that autonomic nervous system function because you're going to constantly be trying to be only one-sided. So trying to be positive is like saying, well, I only need my sympathetic nervous system. I don't need the parasympathetic because I'm positive, never negative. And as a consequence of that, whatever you're suppressing, the negativity, is generally going to show up at some point as some sort of sign and symptom in your body. Now, the ancients knew this millennia ago. And so in the Chinese medicine system, for example, we have organ couples. The organs occur in functional couples, and those couples, the coupled organs, always have equal and opposite polarity. So they call them there's the Zhang organs, and then they're the Fu organs, right? The Zhang organs, this is just for interest sake, are your heart, your spleen, your liver, your lungs, and your kidney. They're half of all the couples. And the Fu organs are the stomach, the small intestine, the gallbladder, and the bladder. And they coupled together. So in each organ couple, you'll have a Zhang organ and you'll have a Fu organ. So that means you'll have the polarity, but they need to operate together. So your liver and gallbladder, for example, they are a Zhang and a Fu organ couple. So, you can't just take your liver out and have only your gallbladder. You need the liver and the gallbladder to work together. And physiologically, they work together in this way. Your liver makes bile, and bile is used to carry toxins out of the body, and bile salts are used to emulsify fats. So your liver makes bile. The bile gets moved through the biliary tree in your liver to your gallbladder. Your gallbladder concentrates the bile, and the contraction of your gallbladder causes the bile to be released into your small intestine, so that the fat that you've eaten in the food that has moved from your stomach into the small intestine can be emulsified. In other words, it can dissolve in a liquid medium because your digestive enzymes are all in water. And now your digestive enzymes can work on the fats in order to digest them so that they can be digested and absorbed. So physiologically, those organs work together, and energetically, those organs work together also. Now, I want to speak about the heart and small intestine organ function couple, because in the Chinese system of medicine, the emotion associated with the heart and small intestine is joy and radiance. Now, that sounds wonderful, right? But there is such a thing as excess joy. When the joy is excessive, in other words, when we're having to pretend to constantly be positive and never negative, we end up with this excess joy, and that disharmonizes the function of the heart and small intestine organ function energy. There is a traditional Japanese healing art called Jinshin Jitsu. And Jinshin Jitsu, I've spoken about this before, means the art of the creator through compassionate and knowing man. Now, I mentioned Jinshin Jitsu and traditional Chinese medicine because they developed on completely separate parts of the planet. Please remember that when these systems of medicine were being developed, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have air travel, all right? Things were much, much slower. And so it's not a case of, conveniently someone developed something in China and then it just sort of spread via the internet to Japan. It didn't happen like that. These systems started independently of one another with the same philosophy. So in Jinshin Jitsu, the heart and the small intestine are also coupled organs, but instead of saying that the emotion associated with the heart and small intestine is joy, they say that it is trying to or pretending. The negative expression, actually the positive expression is radiance and joy, and the negative expression is pretending or trying to. And pretending is exactly that positive face that we show the world when we deliberately choose not to focus on the negative. Now, there's a difference between focusing on the negative and acknowledging that the negative exists. So when you acknowledge that the negative and the positive exist at the same time, and you then choose to focus on the positive, fine. But most positivity, when positivity becomes toxic, is when we refuse to even concede or acknowledge that negativity and the negative emotions associated with it exist. Now, as I use these words, positivity and negativity, know that negative, whatever is a positive emotion and what's a negative emotion, that is it's not objective, is it? Someone decided that emotions such as joy and happiness and inspiration were positive, and sadness and grief and anger and shame and guilt were negative. Well, that's an arbitrary distinction. It's a distinction to show that they're opposite to one another, but making the one positive, i.e. good, as soon as we confer meaning on it and we say positive emotions or attitudes are good and negative emotions are bad, well, now we've made a value judgment, all right? And so when we experience negative emotion, if we think those are bad, what we're going to do is we're going to suppress them, we're going to distract ourselves from them, and then we're going to replace a negative thought with a positive thought so that we can suddenly have a positive emotion. Meanwhile, that negative emotion has not been acknowledged, it hasn't been felt, and it essentially goes underground. And it's at that point that it starts having an effect and an impact on your autonomic nervous system, your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system, as well as on these intricate energetic connections that exist between the organs and the energetic functions of the organs in the body, as explained to us in traditional Chinese medicine, Jin Shin Jitsu, Ayurveda, the Eastern forms of medicine, where there's no separation between body and emotion and thinking. Thinking generates emotion, all right? So this is why when we are, from a Jin Shin Jitsu point of view, when we are always positive, never negative, then we are pretending. We're not being authentic. We're not being real. We're not being complete. We're not being whole. We're only one side of the coin. We're not both sides of the coin. It's like trying to live life in continuous daylight. I mean, think of how awful that would be. It would disturb our body clocks. We wouldn't produce melatonin. Melatonin helps us to sleep at night, but melatonin is also an anti-aging substance that we produce in our body. We wouldn't be producing things like serotonin. We wouldn't be doing detoxification and regeneration. Those are the things that happen via our autonomic nervous system, our parasympathetic nervous system, predominantly at night while we're sleeping. Now we might say, well, we can sleep in the day. Yeah, we can sleep in the day. Imagine perpetual daylight. We'll all go stark staring mad, all right? And so this is what happens when we try and be only ever positive. When we are always fine, when we're always fabulous, when everything's always amazing, when the truth is that your life might be falling apart and imploding. Now, listen, you can be feeling joyful even if your life is imploding. I'm not very good at that, but I believe that that's possible. But that's different from not acknowledging the truth of what is actually going on with you. So I hope that makes sense. And denying who we are, here's the thing, we all want to be loved for who we are. And we all long to express our true nature and purpose. And in order to express our true nature and purpose in the world, we need to be who we really are. And who we really are is a complete human being with both sides, not only one side. So toxic positivity is a form of bypassing. It's a form of avoiding pain. It's a form of avoiding sitting with those difficult feelings. It's a form of avoiding the truth of what your life really might be like right now. And this is very common, especially when we're sick and especially when we get a diagnosis of some sort of dread disease. So in my years as a homeopath in private practice, I've had a number of patients, either that are patients of mine directly or patients that were mine for a short period of time towards the end of their lives, die. And I've seen immeasurable times, more than I care to remember actually, where people have got a disease like cancer and they are so busy being positive, they're so busy using their positivity to fight the disease that they haven't spent any time acknowledging the truth of their fear. We've spoken about this in the fear episodes, right? So if you haven't watched any of those, please go back and listen to some of the previous episodes. So when we are trying to heal, but we refuse to acknowledge the truth of where we are right now, the truth of our diagnosis, the truth of how it makes us feel, the truth of the fears that it brings up for us, the truth of the difficulty that it has for us, the people suffering from the disease, and the people that we love that are in contact with us, that are having to be with us dealing with that. When we are not acknowledging that, we cannot heal. Now, the irony of it is that we've been brainwashed into thinking that as soon as we acknowledge that, if we are even remotely negative, then we cannot heal. But that's the paradox. The paradox is you cannot connect to the vision of what you would love to create, your healing, if you aren't being honest, brutally honest about the truth of where you are right now. And this is one of the tragedies, I think, of the sort of positive thinking movement. This is one of the tragedies of some of the new age spirituality. That is, it's all about love and light. Well, you know what? It's not. It's about love and hate and light and darkness. It's about all facets. All of it matters. And if we are denying the truth of how we really feel about our signs and symptoms, if we're denying the signs and symptoms in and of themselves, this is also a problem. All right. When we don't want to have the test because we don't want the test result, because we don't want to face the reality, that is denying the truth, the one part of the truth. One part of the truth is the truth of where you are right now. The other part of the truth is the truth of what your spirit is longing to express in the world in terms of your healing, in terms of your true nature and purpose. We need both. So, and not so. And we can create no matter how negative or positive we are, because our focus determines what we're creating, not our attitude. And yes, it is easier to shift your focus onto what your spirit is longing to express when you are feeling okay. But you know what? Very few of us are trying to do that when we're feeling great about something. It's generally when we're not enjoying an aspect of our lives and we are longing to create something different. So we're already in that space where we want it to be other than what it is. But before we can create the new version, we have to get real about what it is that we have and how it is that we got here and what it is that's running the show. And part of the truth of where we are is the truth of what's going on in our unconscious. So by default, our focus is on what's happening in our unconscious minds, our limiting beliefs, our coping strategies that we develop as a consequence of that, what we believe about ourselves and others in the world. So you can be as positive as anything if you have no awareness of what these unconscious beliefs are that are driving you and running you, and you've got no awareness that your positivity in itself can be a coping strategy. You can be positive as anything, but your focus is unconsciously on that limiting belief of not being good enough and not being worthy and not being perfect and not being capable and all of those ones that we have, right? And you are then going to create in your life circumstances that are going to reflect the truth of where your focus currently lies. So when you deny the truth of where you are right now, and that may include negative emotion and not feeling on top of the world and not actually always being okay and not pretending that you're okay, but just being honest with where you are. When you are not acknowledging that, your focus is there anyway. And you're going to create more circumstances that are going to reflect the truth of that, which means you're going to have to start trying harder to be positive. And that brings me back to the heart and small intestine organ function energy in Jin Shin Jitsu, that couple. It's associated with the attitude of pretending and pretending that everything is okay, and then trying to fix everything that's not okay while being in denial of the truth. And it affects your heart, your joy, your ability to radiate. And it affects your small intestine organ function energy, which is your rational analysis, your ability to analyze. And that affects your clarity. And when your clarity is clouded, what actually happens is unconsciously you're experiencing more and more negativity and you're getting more of what you don't want in your life. So you're going to have to up your game on your positive attitude even more. And that's going to create more stress in your physiology and in your psyche. And that's going to express itself physically through your autonomic nervous system and this energetic organ system that you've got going. And ultimately, it can express itself through disease. So if we want to create wellness, well, if we want to create vitality for ourselves, it's really important that we know both poles of the battery. We've got to connect the terminals of the light bulb to both poles of the battery, both the positive and the negative pole, all right? If we want to create if we want to really, when I say prevent, now, if you want to prevent disease because you're terrified of getting sick and you're doing it from your ego, problematic, because your focus is on the fear, right? But if you want to maximize your long-term health and vitality, a positive attitude is not what you need. You need both. You need the truth of where you are and the truth of what you'd love to express. And you need to be a fully embodied human. And a fully embodied human is not only positive. A fully embodied human is both positive and negative in equal amounts. And a fully embodied human is a human that can not only recognize the positivity and the negativity, but can actually allow ourselves to feel those emotions, to allow us to dissipate that emotional charge out of our physical body, out of our physiology. So if you are pretending, if you find yourself hustling and trying and struggling and not getting the results that you want. It might be that you are using positivity as a strategy that's not serving you. And so this is more common than you might think. I, myself, that's one of my strategies. I make everything okay. I can find a positive spin for just about everything, okay? Because being a glass half full person has got me validation. People like being with people who have positive energy. They go, oh, your energy is so great. But you know what? People don't like being with people who are fake. So if you're covering up the truth of who you are, but always having to be upbeat and always having to be positive, you are denying the world of your magnificence, because you are denying half of who you are. You're denying half of you who you are. And what will happen is other people will also deny half of who you are. And the relationships that you forge with yourself and with others will only be one side. They'll be superficial. And that also impacts your health negatively. So the key takeaway here is not to be positive. Please, guys, if you are feeling truly positive, great. It's about not putting yourself under pressure to be positive, always positive, never negative, because that leads to toxic positivity. And yeah, toxic positivity, it's quite a hard energy. People actually don't want to be with people who are not genuine. They don't want to be with people who are invulnerable, because when I'm with someone who pretends to be invulnerable, if I'm not attentive to what's really going on, it's going to make me feel worse about myself, actually. And then it's going to activate my trying to, okay, why can I not be like that person who's always positive? You don't want to do that. And that positivity can be an almost, when I say it's hard, it can be, it has like an energy of like, well, wow, you're not good enough to it, unconsciously. And we can respond to that. So sometimes that can make us feel even worse. I used to think that negative people drain my energy. What I've discovered now is that one-sided people drain my energy. And what I mean by that is those people who are always negative, never positive, those are easy to spot. The negative Nellies, right? Those are easy to spot. But you know what? The always positive, never negative, they exhaust me just as much. And the reason why, from my perspective, is because both of those lack authenticity. The negatives are not able to see the other side, which makes them exhausting. And the positives are not able to see the other side either, or not prepared to show themselves. And so we're getting incomplete humans on both sides. People are attracted to inspiration. Inspiration is not always positive. It's not always positive, right? Being an inspired human, I can be inspired about what it is that I'm creating in my life. And I can be extremely negative about a setback that I may have had, because that's life. Right now, I could not be feeling positive. And it's okay. And when we give ourselves permission to actually experience the fullness of life, positivity and negativity, what happens is we give everyone else permission to do the same, because we're showing up as the genuine version of ourselves. And that is going to reflect in our physical bodies also. So I hope that made sense. I hope that was clear. At the end of it, I'm always like, well, that was really clear to me. I'm not sure if it was clear to everyone else, but I would love to hear your comments about this. You're welcome to drop me a mail, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can type something in the comments. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening to another episode of The Missing Link in Your Healing. It is our honor, mine, Antoinette's honor and privilege to be able to do this work. Antoinette's having a breather this week, but she will be back next week. We'll either be together or she'll be doing something on her own. I'm not sure yet. I think we might be together, actually, because I miss her when she's not here with me, and I'd like to think she feels the same with me. And I'm rambling now, so I'm going to say thank you very much. If you found this episode valuable, useful, please would you follow us, and please would you share the link with a friend that you think could benefit from this. I will see you in the next episode.